falls down on your street, you don't call the Pahoa Town Council, because of course there isn't one, and you don't call Hilo or you don't call the county. These are things that communities are designed and expected to take care of. So we see the responsibility of us to make sure everybody knows what the policy is regarding that space, and so they can make their own personal decisions about their homes and their investments without having to worry that things will just change overnight. So that's our goal, is to try to please as many folks as we can. And the more people we hear from, the more confident we can be about our decision. So that's my hope. And I hope also that you will ask questions if there's things that are unclear in your mind about what are going on. If we know the answer, we'll certainly tell you. But also we'd like to know what your personal situation is and how that translates into what policies you'd like to see, what you'd like to see on that policy regarding the eruption site.
So let's start.
So we're eager to hear what you guys have to say.
And we're recording this meeting.
I made a short.
Go ahead, Alice. Go ahead.
We sent you out a fairly detailed list of the issues and the possible impacts that we would have to deal with if and when the roads are open. And we probably didn't make a complete list, but I made a shortened, much shorter list that is that we could put up on the screen to give you an idea of where we feel we stand. Maybe you have more issues you think we haven't addressed, or maybe you have particular questions about the things on those lists. But we've tried to make it divided up into what goals we should have, what management policies we should have, and how much this will cost LCA to deal with, because our budget and our resources are, as you know, limited, and so we have to be very careful in how we spend our money.
Okay.
So Robert is going to flash that up on the screen just to remind you. I hope some of you guys had a chance to read the screen, or you want to wait for that?
Alice, I thought we'd do that afterwards, okay? Is that okay?
Oh, okay.
All right,
Okay.
so let's get, everyone's on. I guess people are raring to go. All you need to do is to raise your hand, not physically raise your hand, but it's actually under participants is a thing that says raise hand. Click on participants, raise your hand, and then I'll see that and I'll call on you. And the same ground rules we have for board meetings. You have 3 minutes to speak, and we'll just take it as it comes. Okay.
And I'd like to add that this, Robert told you it's not a board meeting, but we're not going to talk about board, any kind of other issues besides this one tonight. So if you have other things to say, you can come to the board meeting.
Okay. So who wants to break the ice? Going once. Jeff, okay. Jeff or Robin, one of you, okay. If I asked if you could put on your video so you can see your lovely faces, it'd be great.
See if I can handle all this technical.
Okay.
Hey, Robert. Yes. So I guess my concerns with the roads are, since I live immediately back in Fisher 8, before COVID-19, there was a huge problem with tourists and people hiking back there. In the past, I'd say month, since travel opened up, it's become a bigger problem again, because we hear the voices from our house, and I'll go back there, and some days I'll see 2 or 3 groups of hikers back there. And, we already had a case where one guy put up like 6 tents on one of the empty lots off in Ohea on the lava field. So, I think my concern with the lots is just to kind of you know, make sure it just doesn't turn into a trash heap of people squatting there and kind of that happening. And then concerning the roads, I think the biggest issue that is how are we going to pay for this? Would it be a special assessment? And then will we have to, should we get those lots to start paying their dues again? If we're going to give them access to the roads.
Right. Okay. All right, so again, Allison and I are taking notes. We're not going to actually respond to this unless you have a particular question that you think maybe we could answer.
I'll respond if anybody asks a question. Somebody has not muted themselves so we can hear you talking. So make it easier to hear the person on board.
Right. Okay. Jeff, are you complete? Jeff?
Yeah, I think I'm pretty complete.
Okay,
I'm just really concerned about non-permitted development and trash down there and junky looking lots and just you know what happens in a situation like that.
Okay. Thank you, Jeff.
Thank you.
Thank you. Next person.
I can't figure out how to wave my hand.
All right, well, Lee. Okay, well, Lee, you're on. Okay, so go ahead, Lee.
Can you elaborate what you have learned from our legal representation concerning this?
Yeah, so I just spoke to our lawyer today, and this is not a legal, I don't think it's a legal term, but we're in legal limbo, meaning the owner of the road or owner of the TMK is a trust set up by a woman who died. And I guess was the wife of the developer. I mean, I'm just guessing. And that trust, and it was never turned over to the LCA. So the LCA does not own the road outright, though it was mandated by the Articles of Incorporation to manage the roads, but we don't technically own the roads. So there's, it's as Lincoln said, it's just it's in a legal limbo situation, and it would take some expenditure of money to get that rectified. I don't know how much money, but it would take some money to get this cleared up, so that there's a clear title. But that's the situation as it is right now. And that obviously has, let me just finish. So that obviously has implications, because at this point, if we have a policy about the road, we can't enforce that policy legally. And therefore anything could happen to the roads, and we have no legal way of enforcing rules and regulations, except for the county road of Leilani Avenue, which the county owns. So that's where we are right now. Alice, you want to add to that?
Robert, my thought on this is that LCA has managed those roads for 50 years. We paved them, we take care of them,
right,
and we have responsibility for those roads. So
right.
It doesn't make sense that a 50-year-old mistake means that we lose our ability to manage those roads. So I'd say it's a high priority to get that straightened out.
Right. Well, that's something the board will talk about.
We don't want to.
Right. The board we will talk about that issue on the 14th. That's one of the key points we're going to talk about, is what we want to do about the situation.
Yeah.
Can I ask another question?
Go ahead, Lee.
With that, I kind of understand the frustration with a couple of the people that are wanting to get access to their properties. But one of the things I thought, which is outside the LCA boundaries, is what is the county or the state doing to try to get these people money to buy back their lots so that they could have prevented this and made Fisher 8, a shrine or whatever they wanted to do.
Right.
I mean, hell, they're renaming it. There's a state committee on the name of the thing. So you would figure they would want to protect it and the surrounding property around it.
Right, right. So that right now also is, it's called the Community Development Block Grant. And that's going to be a high priority issue for the new administration to implement.
So correct here.
And so for people who want to have their property bought out by the county, they've been told about this,
Relocate over there.
and they should contact the county.
Yeah,
But,
in here.
Robert, there
Yes.
is a plan for buyout, but it's not fast. I remember reading that they thought everything would be completed by, let's see,
within 4 to 5
2026
It could take that long, right? But that's
at the very end. But they do intend to buy as many properties as they can,
right.
and they are not allowing them to be resold or anything like that.
Right. Okay. Next person who wants to speak. Give us your opinion. Your obvious, what you want for this area. What do you want to see? What questions do you have?
I'll go next. This is Ann Calver. And, looking at the issues of roads and lava, there are different subdivisions on the island. There's Kalapana Gardens, there's Royal Gardens. Kapoho went through this, and in talking to different people, they waited quite a while before they went in and really worked the roads. But our biggest problem here is that we have a fissure, a very large fissure in the middle of our subdivision that took over. So, I wish that the state and county would implement rules or regulations on how to handle it. It's suddenly been put in our lap and we have to deal with it. So that's a big concern to me. And it seems like there's such a variable in the subdivision. Some roads can't go down. People will come out and tell you, don't come on the road that specifically we were as residents able to use to view the fissure. We're told not to go down them, leave them alone. Then someone else comes in, pulls up a guardrail, takes a road straight out to Fish Lake. And my biggest thing is liability wise. So what happens if someone goes out on that road that was put and something happens? Are they liable? Is there any, are we liable? So there's so much that is within basic structure that we should have to work with, that the county has to work with, and that the county is negligent about providing for us. So, it was very evident when the road on Luana was being put in. Nobody wanted to step up and say anything or take any type of thing, even down to when he was supposedly needed a permit, and nothing was taken, no action was done. So that's what I feel like this has been thrown in our lap, and we have to deal with it. The other thing is we have to deal with the fact that we have a fissure. It's not going away. It's not going to change. Your property and where you live is exactly the way it's going to be until the next eruption, So that's my 2 cents.
Can I just tag something on there, Robert?
Yes.
Since Anna's on, I thought Mark brought up a really, really cogent point. And that's, we need to have a plan to develop this in such a way that our community looks something like it is now. Leilani has gone to great lengths, however successfully, to have paved roads, to not have dead cars, to make the place look upscale, to not look like a lot of the other subdivisions, which I personally don't care for. It's one of the reasons that I like living here. So, to have a plan on how that gets developed, rather than willy-nilly, everybody goes wherever and builds whatever they want to. That's a huge concern. But there are so many concerns. It's crazy. liability aspect. If you get people out there, they won't have any power. They're using generators. You know, you're going to deal with the noise of the generators. There are so many issues here. And it's such a thorny question. People deserve to go back to their land. They do deserve to go back to their land. But man, we got to do this right, or we're going to be a big mess, you know? Thanks.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you,
very-
Mick. That's why we're trying to make this policy, but I'd like to say that I agree with you about the county. The county could be doing a lot more, and Mitch Roth ran on a platform of changing the culture from the way it was. So I haven't given up on trying to get him on board with this. He's been down to visit. He says he's interested in us, but we haven't been able to break through the no return phone call situation, and they act like they're still trying to figure out what to do there. That's the message I'm kind of getting from them. But we've got to keep the pressure up.
Thank you. Patrick O'Healy, you're next. I'll unmute you. I think you have to unmute yourself, Patrick.
Okay.
Patrick, you're next.
It's clear from what I'm hearing that the association has limited ability to really manage what goes on. And there are a couple things that concern me. Number one, I think that it's important for people who own property to be able to access their property. But on the flip side, what I understand about what's gone on at Luana, and I apologize, we're stuck on the mainland because of COVID and can't get to our home. So basically by removing the guardrail
and get a decent land book in a matter.
Sorry. Go ahead, Patrick.
So by removing the guardrail, the streets really become a nuisance. So I'm wondering if there's a midpoint where I've heard that many of the property owners on Luana that are on the part where they still have homes are unhappy with the amount of traffic, and that's understandable. I'm wondering if it would make sense to at least put a chain across the street like they have at Lower Malama to give the people in that area access without turning it into an open road. And so another question I've got is, how much authority does the association have? And then what happens if somebody gets on one of these homemade roads and has an accident? Does the association have liability? That's the end of my conversation.
Okay. Thank you, Patrick, very much. Next, we have Rebecca. Rebecca, if you unmute yourself.
Hi, I'm Rebecca. Well, not really. This is Rebecca here. Rebecca and Tim, this is mostly just opinion because you were asking for input. I don't have any answers, but we lost our home and we are in Utah right now. And we'd love to come back someday to access our property and probably put a tiny home on it or something portable so that should Pele come back, we can just hook up and leave. But we're getting all the news and you know, we can sort of see all sides of the story. I mean, I can see why a tourist attraction would be something nice for people to come and see. But on the other hand, Leilani and really Puna has always been a kind of a Wild West place where people go to get away from the rest of the world. So I'm sure there are plenty of people there who would rather not have that kind of traffic and potential problems and potential liability. So I can see both sides of the situation, but I think clearly what needs to be done is establish some rules and and also just enforce the covenants. I mean, the idea of somebody putting out 6 tents on the lava flow, that's a trespassing issue. That's nothing new. It's like, that's something obviously that should be addressed under certain rules and regulations that should already exist. But you know, your limited resources, you have limited access to the police and to the county officials. But if we establish a sense of law and order of some sort, then I think that will help the aspect of showing that Leilani is a good community and that there are rules and that, you know, there's a certain freedom of living there, but there's also a certain set of rules that we all have to live under. I think the idea of having some way for people to come and see the fissure would be great, but at the same time, respecting people's privacy is very important too. And Rebecca and I were talking about wanting to be able to get access to your property. That's perfectly understandable. It's a property rights situation, but at the same time, the association made it very clear that you can't do that yet, and so he broke the rules. So this really comes down to a matter of creating rules and setting them up and following them, I think. Did you have anything to add? That's it from Utah.
Okay, thank you. I appreciate that. And what is your first name again?
Tim.
Tim?
Tim Jeffries, yeah.
Tim, thank you very much, Tim. Okay, appreciate these thoughtful remarks everyone is giving. Shows the parameters of what we're dealing with here. Next person up is Mark and Jennifer. If you would unmute yourself.
Hi. Yeah, it seems though I agree with the rules and regulations, but unfortunately, it don't seem like because we don't have ownership of the road, we have a whole lot of authority to do anything to enforce rules. That's the problem with any rules, is the enforcement of the rules. And just because we may create rules, people can feel as though they can defy those rules and do whatever they want to and not pay any consequences, and that's probably true. And the fact that it's in a legal quagmire right now about who owns the roads or who's responsible for the roads. The only thing I can see is an immediate option is to put a lot of pressure on the county, the mayor, to get something done immediately if they want to preserve and protect the area around Fissure 8. They can put some restrictions in place that are enforceable, whereby the association is not an enforcement entity. So, you know, that it's difficult to enforce what they want to enforce. But if the mayor were to create an area of parameters, physical parameters around a certain geographic area and say, no one is allowed to disturb this area at this point because we have plans in the future to either buy this area out and create a preserve or geologic site out of it, whatever the case may be, where people can access it from the county road. But in my opinion, our first course of action is get someone involved that does have legal authority to enforce law and rules. I think that's very critical. We got to get something done, if the mayor is really truly in favor of doing this, we've got to basically force them to get around to creating a resolution that is going to protect this area and solve some of these problems until we get a chance to iron things out in the future.
Jennifer, did you want to?
That's my 2 cents, I guess.
Okay, thank you, Mark. That was helpful.
It's a good suggestion.
Thank you. Jennifer, did you want to add anything before we go on? I guess not. Okay, next is Chris Burmeister. Chris, you're on.
Good evening. Hey, I just want to just say that, I'm torn on this whole issue. I didn't want a road being put in, but I also recognize private property rights. This is boils down to people's private property rights. Fissure 8 isn't owned by the county. The lava field isn't owned by the county. It's all privately owned. When they cut the road on Capono Street, they allowed access to people who still had homes, and that made sense at the time. But 2 years has passed. I know Sam was beating down every door, looking for answers of how to proceed. And as much as I didn't like what happened, I have to recognize his private property rights. And I have my own property rights as well. Everybody does. And to take that away from somebody, if you don't have rights to your property, what do you have? I didn't want it getting developed, but you know what? That's just not in the cards, in my opinion, because once one road got open, the others are going to get opened up too. You can't go back and say, oh, sorry, that guy got a chance to do it, but now you can't. It's all the same out there. There are some people that will probably never go back, but every single government agency came down there to investigate, and they all said nothing to see here. Civil defense said the barricade could come up. The police checked it. I was there. It's trying to create a policy that strips people of their private property rights is a lawsuit waiting to happen. If we want to sit here and talk about, saying who can go back and who can do this and who can do that, that's not our place to do that. I think we're going to be opening up a bigger can of worms than what we really should be doing. Leilani, a community association can't, condemn a property when the county hasn't. So everybody that has houses can sit around and talk about how Joe Schmo can't go back to his property, but it's just going to turn into a can of worms. And that's how I feel about it. I also have property out there, 3 acres out in the middle. I mean, I'd like to get to it, but I wasn't willing to cut a road and open up that, to go down that path. It didn't bother me, but some people want access to their property. And that's just, if they're willing to foot the bill to get to that access, we're talking about law and order here. There's no law that could prevent anybody from getting in their way unless they blocked it. Like if there was some more moratorium on cutting the road, but the county came out and spoke. Okay. If the county and the state wanted that land, they would have put a moratorium on transfers, sales. They haven't done that. They're not going to do that. So we're talking about making plans and policies that I guarantee you we're not getting everybody's opinion on. We're just talking on this Zoom meeting, and I don't think that's enough. So, and it doesn't matter how many people get in on the conversation. You can't go and strip somebody of their private property rights. And the community association went out on a limb and dozed Capono. That was more significant material moved and than what the county realized. It was more than a shipping container's worth of material. I remember what it looked like. Permits weren't issued because you couldn't get permits because you can't get the signature from the people who own it.
Chris,
Or it's very difficult.
One more minute, please.
So I'm just saying that once Sam cut the road, it's wide open. It's open now. I mean, every road if somebody wants to get to their property, to do anything other, to get in their way, anybody's way, is a lawsuit.
Okay.
And it may not be just with one person. It might be with multiple property owners. So the only reason they didn't think that he needed a permit, because the county guy that came down to check said, oh, every person in front of the road that has road frontage here, we're considering that as different jobs.
Chris, I'm going to interrupt because other people want to speak, and if we have time, we'll come back to you and you can continue.
Well, I gotta go.
Okay.
I'm just saying, I got property out there. I'd like to get to it.
Okay.
And to have one road open and not the others isn't fair.
Okay.
All right. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Really appreciate that, Chris. Next is Patty. Patty, if you'll unmute yourself, you have the floor.
Hi. I just have a quick comment. I know everyone's talking about Fisher 8, but I personally would be interested in seeing Moku and Kapono fixed so that they're not so hard to drive over. They were a lot better in the beginning. They seem to be getting a lot worse now. So I'd like to see something done with those. That's it. Thank you.
So Patty, I can answer that. In January, we should have an engineering firm signed on with who will manage the road repair work. So I understand it requires a certain amount of patience, but we are moving forward, and this January we should have an engineering firm, and then they're going to interview different road people, and they'll be in charge of that. So we are moving. Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Next is Beth. Beth, I'm gonna lower your hand. If you unmute yourself, you have the floor.
Hi there. I am someone who I'm not real knowledgeable. I just retired. I was planning, this was my timeline, was to come to Hawaii now and build. But when this all happened, I've just been kind of frozen. And I just wanted to make a comment, especially to what Chris just said. It just seems to me, I don't know if this is the time for you guys to be starting policy, obviously, until you've got all your information as far as moving ahead with who owns what and how many permits do you need, and come up with a budget. I mean, it's kind of hard to set policy at this early, even in the next year. And then you've got a fissure that at any moment could go again. And so when people talk about, I have the right to get to my land, and it's totally understandable, but life isn't, I just want to say this, life isn't necessarily fair. I'm basically writing off, I own 2 parcels also in Nanawale, and I'm just writing off about $130,000 in my life. So I'm approaching it with Pele took my land, it's gone. The lava did not cover my land. I'm in the middle of Kapono, between Malama and Leilani. And to me, I don't understand how people even could consider building there unless you change the rules where you could really have a temporary dwelling, but then that, that will inspire people to kind of have lean-tos. So it just seems to me that it's a mess, and it's going to take more than 2 years to work out. You also have, I don't know who this group is, the big land investors who are buying up land. I've gotten offers a couple of times to sell to them, which I'm not, it doesn't feel good to me. So though they keep increasing the amount every year, I'm still haven't spoken to them. I don't know if anybody here has been approached by them. I was just last offered $3,000 plus paid my back taxes. So it just seems it's a lot of balls in the air, and to set policy, I think should be something where it's almost not, don't set rules, but just policy for now, may change in 6 months as you get more data. But hats off to you guys. I mean, what a mess. I mean, really unbelievable. Sad.
Beth, can I answer your question about the value of your property?
Yes.
The county has included undeveloped lots which did not originally have a home on them in the buyout and are willing to be what I thought was pretty generous about their payouts. And that would possibly give you enough money to buy another lot someplace else.
Well, I
your
thought it had
liking.
to be that
So-
your land was covered by lava. That's not the case.
No, or damaged by lava in some way.
I'm not there, so I don't know if the middle of Capono was damaged.
Definitely, all of
Yeah.
Capono would qualify and under
Really?
their criteria. Yeah, send us an email. We'll give you the link to read up on the buyout plan. To me, it sounds
Okay.
quite generous, and that you would definitely.
Do they have a limited amount of funds that may have been already kind of gone now?
No, they haven't even started. They haven't even started
Okay.
doing their payouts, but they are. They're giving, they're giving priority to the people who need it the most. They've got a lot of qualifications. Yeah.
Okay. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Jean, you're next. Jean?
Yes. Can you hear me?
Perfectly.
Okay. I think you need to decide whether you got a road or a driveway. If it's a road like Luana is, it belongs to the subdivision and belongs to the residents of the subdivision. So if it's a road and you want to give access, then the subdivision needs to make it a road. If it's a driveway, then the person who's punching in the driveway needs to gain legal access to a road that actually belongs to the subdivision residents. So Leilani needs to decide whether a thing like Luana is a road or is it Mr. Estes' driveway. Either way, you need to make a decision and decide which way you want to go. If you decide to give Mr. Estes access and a driveway, then it can't be a Leilani road, and he needs to settle with the owners of that land, which is us, and get access for free for lifetime, or he needs to pay a fee. If it's a road, then Leilani needs to bite the bullet and make it a road just like every other road in Leilani, which is paved, which is wide, and which is maintained. So you got to decide what you want to do. We can't have people deciding to punch driveways or trails in over the lava if they need access. They deserve access. It's their property and they need to be able to get into it. But we don't have a series of trails leading to various properties without established access, which is what Luana was. It was a road. So basically, Leilani needs to decide, are we going to make a road here? In which case, we need to pay for it, in which case we need to vote on it. Or do we grant Mr. Estes access, which he deserves, but we need to do it legally? There's already people going out Mr. Estes' driveway and driving around on the lava, looking, at the fissure, which they're curious about. I had one person ask me if it even was there anymore, if it was going to be removed. So people want to see it. I don't know why, but they do. So if you want to, grant him access or you want to make it a road, you need to make a decision, and Leilani needs to decide on it as a community. That's about it.
Thank you, Jean. That was very clear and very helpful. Next person, well, I'm going to call Ethan because Ethan hasn't spoken yet. So Ethan, you're up next. Just unmute yourself.
Yeah, can you hear me?
Yes.
Yeah, just a couple of points. I mean, very frankly, like I go out and walk up on the fissure often. I actually did it today and it's beautiful. I don't know if you guys have been out there or not. There's some question people have, like, why would people want to see this? It's because it's Hawaii, it's gorgeous. Why do people go to Volcanoes National Park? It's the same thing. When you go down there, I've been inside Fissure 8. There's an amazing lava tube. There's some channels. There's some like really pristine geographical things here in this fissure that people are going to want to see. Tourism, I mean, they're just going to start doing it, and people are going to start taking pictures. I've been here long enough to know down in Kalapana, you know, I have friends out there, like when the lava started, you know, they have people walking to and fro the whole time. They have the whole bike community coming up. And so what seems to be here is you either get ahead of this stuff or it just kind of pushes you over. You know, we live in a place where the state officials and stuff, they don't really care down here. It's a lava zone. It doesn't make a lot of money. You know, there's some taxes we do, but it's more of a headache. And so there's this dream of that maybe they'll come in and buy out. They're not going to buy out all the land. You know, first off, they don't have enough money to buy all the land. Some people are simply not going to want to sell. You know, so even if they buy some of the land, you're going to have people that own the land that want roads, right? That's just going to happen. And then some people are like, well, who wants to live here? Tons of people would live there. And I think if you look down at Kalapana Gardens, you can very clearly see that this land will have value. People want to buy it and people will build on it in time. And so the idea that you're going to stop people from doing that, I think is the dream. You know, so I think getting ahead of it and like really setting policy of how do we want this to look, how do we maintain this? We do have control and rights here in terms of, you know, just if you live in Leilani and what kind of house you build and like all of those legal things. But, you know, if someone throws tents up, you can stop them. And that's like, I think in the covenant already. As far as the roads go, again, it's like you could get control of the roads and the ownership, but you still have the property rights. Like people have those rights. And I think it helps to be like, if this was your property, you know, if your property was half covered or fully covered, you know, would you want access to it? Would you want other people telling you what you want to do? You know, it just doesn't really work that way. And I think there's this dream that like, you know, we live in Leilani and so we get to decide what other people do with this beautiful thing. And that's just not, I don't think that's realistic at all. So, also, so the other thing is like, there is, you know, again, money, and like, there's some people that really love this community and have lived here for a long time, and they just want it to be their retirement. They want it to be quiet. They don't want any people coming through. And truth be told, with the lava, that changed everything. Every place in Hawaii down here, from Kalapana to Volcano, when the lava comes and flows, it changes it, you know, and people want to come in and people want to see it and helicopters want to fly over it. And let's be clear, this is a tourism economy, right? So if it's going to make money,
don't want to fly over it.
That the system is going to want that money, you know, so you either have to provide an option or produce laws to stop people. But I've seen down at Kalapana and other places, that's just not how it really works around here realistically. You know, so for me personally, as someone who lives in Leilani and really like, honestly, I'm a little more entrepreneurial, you know, it's for me, it's like creating a positive space for this to happen, you know, for Leilani to take ownership of this fissure and the space around it, you know, to create space where people can come here and do it in a way that as positively as possible impacts the community. Because I don't think resisting it or pushing back, I don't think there's a legal authority, and I just don't think it's realistic based on human nature and what I've seen in every other area that has to deal with this stuff. So.
Ethan, thank you very much. Thank you. So I see at this point, no more hands. Did someone else have a hand raised? Because right now I don't see any more hands raised.
Where's the fucking hand there?
Anyone else
How do you raise? Can you hear me, Robert?
Yeah, who's that speaking?
This is Fernando. I'm in Oregon.
Okay, Fernando, I hear you. Go ahead, Fernando. Go ahead.
Okay. Yeah, I just kind of jumped in, and I have a lot down at the Kipuka on Kahukai in the corner of Mohala. And so the lava took the corner of my lot on Kahukai and Mohala. But I am wondering, and I've talked to you before, as to if Leilani going to open up the section from Leilani Avenue to Kahukai once the county starts opening up Pohiki.
The answer is
yes. To give us access into the Kipuka.
Yes, Fernando. We've received monies from the county to do that, and once the county has done their part of it, once they've reestablished Pohiki and Leilani to Kahukai, we'll do the rest so you can get home. But that's, I mean, I don't know when that's going to happen, you know, because they haven't even started on Pohiki Road yet. But yes, that's our commitment to do that, Fernando.
So the monies are there for that.
Yes, you know? The monies are there for that.
So what is going to happen when that happens and we have access to our lots and our houses there, will then we be back on having to pay the annual dues and that those sort of things?
Yes,
So that's a yes. But
that's a yes.
are you going to take into account that the amount that we're going to be able to have to pay, because there's going to be, unless you're going to put electricity poles back in?
Right. So, maybe I was premature in saying yes. So why don't we just say that? We'll see. Okay. Well, maybe. So let's cross that bridge when we come to it. First thing, let's get you home, and then we'll talk about dues. Okay.
Okay.
And what would be equitable, and what would be equitable. Okay. So, but let's leave it at that. Thank you. I think Christopher Creer, your hand is raised, and if you'd unmute yourself, you go, Christopher. Fernando, you need. Okay, Christopher. To Christopher. Once, twice. Okay. Next is Rebecca. You can unmute, Rebecca, and go.
Hello. Yeah, I just wanted to say thank you, Robert, for all that you do and your wonderful emails. You're a voice of reason and all this insanity is from what I can tell here from Utah. And I just wanted to also say that appreciate Ethan's comments. I think it is a very special place and that people do want to come and see it. I don't know that it's unstoppable, but that is an important consideration. Anyway, thank you, Robert.
You're welcome. Well, this is not just me. This is a real team effort. I mean, Alice has been amazing.
Thank you, Alice.
This is definitely a team effort here. Thank you.
Rebecca, where do you live in Utah? I'm a former Utahn.
We are in Salt Lake City in Glendale.
Nice.
Okay, Christopher's back. Christopher, if you unmute, you could speak.
Hello, can you hear me?
Yep, I can hear you.
Okay. My question is, has anyone heard whether or not if the state was considering after the buyout, just say if people don't sell their lands, if they're going to use eminent domain to take the lands, or has any talk of eminent domain even been brought up by the state or any government officials?
Well, in a sense, if you want to sell if you're going to do the buyout, that's a form of eminent domain. You'd be giving up your property to the county, and the county could not build on that property. So that is a form of eminent domain. Besides that,
I'm saying, what about the people who don't want to sell?
Well, then right now there's absolutely no talk of the county coming in and creating, for example, a state park there or a local county park. There's been no conversation about that.
Okay.
In terms of exercising eminent domain to create a park, I haven't heard any conversation.
Okay.
Roth, when he was here, talked about the idea of trying to create a boardwalk to the Fisher to have for tourism, but that was just a conversation he had with us. But there's been no legislation about creating any new county, like Lava Park. Well, it's a state park, but there's no county park here. Okay.
So what is the LCA? What's the LCA's view in regard to the lack of leadership from the state and local level on how to move forward? Because this is an issue that basically affected the entire island and policy, and you haven't heard any clear direction from the officials who have the ultimate jurisdiction. So what's the LCA's position on it?
Well, so the LCA doesn't quote unquote have a position on it. There hasn't been any, position created. But I believe I speak for the board, or I hope I speak to the board. I mean, we will relay the content of this meeting to Mitch Roth, so they understand how Leilani feels about what's happening here. And obviously, there's not one point of view, but the county needs to hear the different issues and what would be an appropriate role for the county to play here. Alice, would you agree or disagree with me about that?
Yes, well, my sense is, having been here for as long as I have, 10 years, is that Mitch Roth is a lot more interested in talking to us than the previous administration was. They really did shut the door on us. So we need to go after the goodwill that we've created with Mitch Roth and get him on board.
Okay, so is there any plan for the LCA to invite these officials to come and Zoom with us and try to work some things out?
So Christopher, that's excellent. So we have one more meeting scheduled, and maybe we can get some feedback from people here. In fact, I would invite Mayor Roth or some other officials from the county to attend that meeting. I think that would serve everybody. And so, I mean, we've done that before. I mean, Roth and his officials attended the meeting we had of Lower Puna Rising, and it was very informative, and they appreciate the information. So I think that for our second meeting, I think that's what we should work on. And I, in fact, will call Mayor's office tomorrow to see if we can get this meeting organized. Does anyone else have any opinions about that? Peter, you are raising your hand or what? You have to unmute yourself, Pete.
Oh, come on, there we go. I think that's it. So here's my question. When the state or the county takes over property, they automatically get a vote on board issues. Are they members of the Leilani Community Association? Is the state or county part of this?
No.
So all they're doing is taking it out of circulation permanently.
Exactly.
As permanently as what they took out of circulation when they did the buyouts for the electric utility down below and then sold them?
No, I can't speak to that, but I can't speak.
You understand the point I'm making? Then.
Yes, I understand the point. And yes, if they were to buy our properties, they would be off the LCA rolls.
Okay. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Beth, you have your hand raised again?
Yes, I have just a quick question. Are you talking with, obviously you must be talking to the other subdivisions that have been hard hit by this and seeing what they're doing? Are you guys all powwowing?
Yeah, well, we're there's an organization called Lower Puna Rising, of which in fact I'm president, and it's an organization of subdivisions and individuals who have been impacted by the lava. Okay. And we're right now actually focusing on road recovery and other infrastructure recovery. So we, in terms of the other subdivisions that were hit, we came off, relatively speaking, in a much better situation, whereas the Kapoho farm lots and the vacation land were totally devastated.
Right.
They're far more serious than ours are.
But what's nice is that you've got almost like a voting block. The more people that you've got involved as a group, it helps put pressure, hopefully, on the state to resolve.
Right.
Okay.
At this point, I think we're more effective with the county than the state.
Okay. Great.
Okay.
Thank you for everything.
I want to throw out an idea. I would really see if we could form a committee of people who represents a range of issues, a range of opinions about what we've been discussing today. Like maybe 6 people, at most 8, who could get together and perhaps draw up a document about the best way forward, or some ideas. And again, really should represent a range of issues regarding the lava-covered roads. I mean, I'm just stating my one opinion. I think at some point we really do need some kind of plan that honors people's private property rights and the other and the community rights. Both need to be honored and respected. And so I was wondering, and we'll bring this up, we could actually discuss this at the board meeting on the 14th, if we could get a committee going of people who feel that they would like to devote some time to this issue. So any feedback on that, I would appreciate. Marion, you have your hand raised. Marion, you have to unmute yourself.
Okay, I think I pushed the wrong button. Sorry, Robert.
You're okay. We hear you now.
No, I think we're all fine. I think the questions have been asked. It's basically, my question was about the road recovery grant and to do with our, who actually owns the road and so on and so forth. So that was all I was thinking about.
Okay,
Thank
okay,
you.
I got it.
Thanks.
Thanks. Jeff or Robin, your hand's raised. You have the floor.
Yeah, I would be interested to know if there was interest in the community and particularly with the residents that have property adjacent to Fisher 8 in the park idea. I don't think it should automatically be ruled out, but just to see if either the residents could see value in preserving Fisher 8, not fencing it, for example, or if they would be interested in another entity purchasing the land to establish a park. I think that could be an important thing for Leilani Estates, or at least to rule it in or rule it out. But I wouldn't just assume that the money's not there, particularly now that there is some money coming.
Right.
Even monies for beyond our subdivision, but just for restoration of Lower Puna. So it is a spectacularly beautiful area back there by the Fisher. So it's worth preserving, I believe.
Robin, when Mitch Roth was here, he said that there is money earmarked for places for tourists to view things in Puna that he could put onto a project right now if there was a project open. So it's specifically a tourist/recreation fund of some kind. So there is money out there. Wouldn't have to be out of somewhere else.
I'm sorry, did you say it's specifically a tourist
Specifically for parks and viewing access and stuff like that.
I see.
And he didn't say how much it was, but he was interested in it because he said that the money already exists.
Yeah, I noticed in your list of that you mentioned the county, working with the county to locate and help design it, sites for viewing. That's really, worth pursuing, and maybe coordinating with the residents in some way. But the residents would need to be polled and on board, yeah.
Thank you.
Well, he's already been told that it will not be on the east side of the, the south side of the fissure. It would be well away from any place where there were homes, the site. They might need a telescope, I suppose. But it's just still in the discussion stage.
Very good.
Thank you. Mark, you want to speak? Thank you, Robin. I appreciate it very much. Mark, you're next.
Hi. Yeah, I agree with her statements. I think we should look at the possibility of being able to preserve and protect it. I mean, that's my philosophy on it. Anyway, we're adjacent to the flow. It touches our property. Fissure 8's in our backyard, and I'd be willing to help serve on a committee if you would like, try to pursue that avenue, at least to see if it's an option for us, to give people that want to come and view the new geologic feature a place to view it from safely with interpretation and preserve and protect the whole area. I mean, that would be surrounding the fissures that are there. I mean, yeah, I, as a neighbor of the Fissure 8, I would be a proponent of protecting it.
Thank you, Mark. Can
I say one other?
Yeah, go ahead, Mark.
Okay, it's just one concern is that, you know, there are people that are buying lots out on the flow, and then they decide they want to have access to it. Well, they purchase these lots at a greatly reduced value, knowing there isn't access to them, easy access other than walking. Now they want to build roads to these properties that were already purchased at a low price that were post-flow purchases. It's a little, just makes me wonder, you know, what their purpose was in their acquisition of these lots to begin with. That's my 2 cents.
But Mark, you said you would be interested in serving on a committee? Yeah, okay, great, thank you. Jean, your hand's raised.
Yeah, I think a committee is a good idea. Not sure that the attraction value is in Fissure 8, maybe overestimated. Even the helicopter guys aren't flying over it anymore. And there's a couple over on Saddle Road that I don't think get a lot of traffic. Not sure who owns Fissure 8 at this time, but definitely all the owners of Fissure 8 should be on a committee to decide what their plan is and why they own it. And other community members should be involved too, because if Leilani has to provide the roads that go to Fissure 8 as a tourist attraction, then we are the people that are going to be financing it through dues, and we need a stake in the outcome here. The other problem with turning it into a tourist attraction is, does Leilani Estates as a subdivision of private residence actually permit a public tourist attraction pay per view in the midst of private property? Is that something it allows? Do covenants cover this? So I think we need to discuss it, you know, in a committee. I think that's a good idea, and I'd be willing to be there.
Thank you, Jean, very much. Okay, so far we have 2 people who want to serve on this committee. Is there anyone else who'd like to? Jeff and Robin? Your hands raised?
Yeah. Yeah, I guess, you know, when you apply the term tourist attraction, my interest tends to plummet because we live, you know, right there, right behind it. And, but at the same time, I'm interested in preserving it. So I guess that could be hammered out in a committee, but I just wanted to say that I've never been and will never be a proponent of, you know, bringing tourists into our neighborhood. So just wanted to go on the record.
Okay, so Robin, did you want to serve on this committee?
Possibly. I need to think about it.
Okay, great. I'll put your name with a question mark. Thank you very much. Thank you. Anyone else? Alice, do you want to go over your document now? Alice?
It sounded to me from what folks were saying that everybody read the one that we sent out.
Okay.
We can show it quickly and tell them maybe some additions to it that this discussion has brought about. So
okay, so I'll do.
I'll
Okay, here it is. So Alice, you you could speak to it and just tell me where to go. Everyone's okay.
Okay, if you just go to the top, these are all sentiments, expressions, ideas that members had. And the first one are the goals for what we would like to have it look like in the future, something that we can be proud of and not allow to turn into any kind of a dumping ground or a place where people are building ugly shacks and that sort of thing. But you can see from these lists, this is just a short version of the list you already have. And quite a few of the recommendations, of course, from individuals, both for the goals and the recommended management, are at odds with each other. So this is something that we're going to have to work out as a community, and is going to be the responsibility of the board to make the best sense of. The only thing I did that isn't part of of opinion is the very last part, which are the expenses associated with opening the roads. And these are concerns of the people, mainly the people who live around there. And I'd say the major one is security of dealing with people who are exhibiting behaviors that we don't want. That is, people joyriding, people making a lot of noise, people squatting in there, people dumping trash and car bodies. We really need, and this is something that is completely unknown how we would manage it. We need to have a security employee who's capable of dealing with criminals. I've heard from many of you that you don't like being policemen in your own neighborhoods, because a lot of the people who are out there are actually dangerous. So the security is a big one. We can always remove trash and car bodies by paying for it. And we don't know how much more volcanic dust there would be about. I haven't talked to anybody who knows how to keep volcanic dust out in a big area. It's one of the biggest expenditures in Hawaii, Hawaiian Paradise Park, is keeping this same dust from getting in people's houses off the roads. And they have a hard time keeping the dust down there. So that's another big one. So I will just let you guys, read your own copy that we sent to you. But one issue that hasn't come up here today, and one I've been working on through the Public Works Department in the county, is they're unable to tell us if they're going to allow anyone to build a house on any of these lava-covered properties. They either haven't decided yet, or they are wobbling between that answer and an answer which is, well, we look at these, we will look at these applications on a case-by-case basis. And if we think it's not a safe place to build a house, then we won't give them permission. So I'm hoping to get a much more concrete answer from them, because we don't want people to plan to build a house out there and go to a lot of expense when the county will not give them a permit. So.
Okay, Alice, thank you. So it sounds, I will do my best to see if we can get Mitch Roth to come and his name was the new head of planning and perhaps Department of Public Works to attend a meeting, and maybe we'll do that in 2 weeks. And so many of the issues you brought up here, many times you refer to the county. So let's get the county to respond to us.
Great idea.
Yeah, so we'll do that. That's the goal for our next meeting. Meanwhile, the board will discuss the question of what we're going to do about the road issue at our meeting on the 14th. Okay, so thank you all very, very much. Thank you for your time. Just appreciate this community effort. Have a great night, and we'll see you soon. Aloha.
Thank you, Robert.
Thank you.